Hey everyone, I'm Ian Miculan and I am a digital content coordinator for Soundbox and eThereLIVE, and today I'm going to be talking a bit about video editing. There's a lot of creativity and a lot of technical know-how that goes into video editing, so let's get started. How long does it take to edit a video? This is probably the question I get the most from either clients or even just kind of people I know, and unfortunately there isn't really a satisfying answer to that, more than it just kind of depends, because there isn't really a set idea of, if a video is 5 minutes, it'll take X amount of time to do. It has a lot more to do with how complex the video is, so that could be anything from, how many cuts are we making? Are we stitching together multiple takes? Are we creating graphics? So again, there's no real kind of one-to-one in terms of timeline. Why should I use a professional video editor? Basically the same reason you would use a professional for anything, really. We have a lot more resources at our disposal. Generally speaking, we're also faster. We're a lot cleaner, so we'll be able to pick up on mistakes a lot more than an amateur would. And we also know how things are going to play a lot more. So, with an amateur video editor, who's just kind of being able to do the technical side, they might be able to make cuts and do X, Y, and Z, but they don't really have that kind of necessary experience of knowing, oh, this is what an audience will like, or this is what an audience won't like, and kind of knowing how to direct clients in that right direction. How does video editing work? So really, I would say there's about 3 major stages of video editing, where the first is collecting the actual content. So figuring out what kind of videos and graphics we're going to actually need to create a video. And then we have the actual editing stage, where we take all of that content and combine it and make it look really nice and create something new out of it. And then the final stage is rendering, and that's when we have our software take that editing file and create a new file out of it, which is going to be the finalized video. What is the video editing process like for a client? Probably the first thing that we're going to ask you as a client is, what's this video supposed to be and who is it supposed to be for? Things like, obviously, audience, but also how long is the video supposed to be, and how are you going to be broadcasting it? And then we're going to start talking about where our footage is going to be coming from. So, do you have footage that's already recorded? Does it need to be recorded? Does it need to be recorded in a studio? Or is it going to be a Zoom call? Something like that. And obviously also if we need to create graphics. And if we do need to create graphics or other creatives, that'll usually be the next stage, where we'll come up with different ideas for things like name graphics, things of that nature. And then we'll pass those by you just to kind of check that, okay, this is the angle we want to go with, because especially when you have something like, say, name graphics, we could have up to 100 name graphics in a single show. So we would want to make sure that we have it right before we start making all of those copies. And then after we get kind of all of the main content done, that's when we take our first pass. And so that's when we try to essentially build something out and try to give you our best idea of what you want, and try to give you where we are kind of creatively and intellectually. And so after that, then we're going to start this kind of back and forth about edits and revisions. So we'll give you that first draft, and you're going to say what you like about it, what you didn't like about it, and then we'll make those changes. We'll keep sending you drafts that you can look at, and eventually through that process we end up having a video, hopefully at the end, that you're happy with and that we're happy with. Then we do a final render where we have the kind of final file sent and made out, and that will either go to our streaming team to stream for you or directly to you, depending on what your needs are. Can you fix it in post? I probably can, but don't count on it if you don't have to. We can do a lot of work on footage and making things look as smooth as possible. But again, it takes time with everything in the editing process. So if you can avoid it at all, generally we try to recommend, if it can be fixed in a second take, generally try to do the second take. But again, that said, we can fix quite a bit actually. I think there was one client where we actually had a roundtable discussion where one person had something come up and they weren't able to actually make that roundtable discussion, and we were able to edit them in afterwards. So that was my big claim to fame in terms of fix it in post. What are some editing terms I should know? It really depends on the type of video. Depending on the video, certain terms are going to come up more than others, but there are a few general terms that we will kind of throw out pretty regularly. One of those is lower thirds. So this is a term 99 times out of 100, it's a name graphic that shows up in the bottom of the screen. Sometimes it's some kind of other marker, but generally you can kind of swap lower third with name graphic and kind of get the idea of what we're going for. We also have cut, which is a very basic editing term where we take a bit of footage and we separate it through a cut line. So we'll have big piece of footage and we make a cut, and then you have two clips that you can kind of manipulate separately. And that's also how we'll, say get rid of a mistake before and after a take. So you might have a little bit of humming and hawing, good take, and humming and hawing. In order to get just the good take, we're going to make cuts. We also have frame rate. So basically, if you think of video as a flip book, because it essentially is a flip book, frame rate is how many frames or kind of flip pages per second are being shown. And this is important because we want to be able to match that in anything that we're doing, just to make sure everything looks smooth and looks like it's coming from the same video source. Another really important one is timestamps. So timestamps are essentially just little recording markers of where a piece of footage is in a given clip. So you'll have clips go from 0000 to however long the clip is in, depending on if it's a super long take, could be hours to minutes to seconds to finally frames. Why are timestamps so important? They're very important in terms of me being able to find footage in a longer take. So we actually find this quite a bit with a lot of our Zoom records, because a lot of times we'll just hit record and then look for the keeper takes within that larger file. So these files can be up to an hour long, 2 hours long, depending on how long the session is. And in order to kind of make life easier and so I can find clips easily, we use timestamps. And so what timestamps are essentially just ways for me to find a time and go, okay, the good clip that we want to use is here. I find that clip, cut before, cut after, and then we take that and we use it for the final product. Really just a big time saver with those larger clips. What are some different types of video files? There are tons of different video files, way more than I should probably go into. So here are the three main ones: MP4, M4V, and MOV. Those are typically going to be the ones that you'll see if people are sending footage or if we're sending footage out. Those are probably going to be the most common. There are also other kind of contributing factors for a video file that will maybe ask of you. So that'll be something like frame rate. So essentially how many frames per second is this video clip. Another thing we'll be looking for is also resolution. So that's essentially how good is the picture quality. Is it HD? Is it 4K? Is it 720? Something like that. So we know, if it's a file that's coming from you that we need to match that, or if we have some kind of concern otherwise, to export in that resolution. And probably the last thing in terms of just thinking about files that we might ask is how big the file is. So lots of things obviously can contribute to how big a file is. This can be, is the resolution super high? Is the frame rate super high? What type of file it is, what type of codec it is, which is a whole other can of worms. But we will generally try to ask, how big is the file? And again, how big a file would you need, depending on what you're going to be using it for. What are some challenges video editors face? So we can have a few different issues. One of them is, because this is a tech field, tech issues. Sometimes video files are funny and they'll either not work for some reason or they'll have errors in them. If that happens, then we have to go in and fix that or find some way around that with the file. Another challenge we might face is, because it's a creative endeavor, is really getting the look and kind of the vibe right of a video. Everybody's going to come in with different tastes, and we're going to try to have, cater to that as much as we can. So really trying to be able to find that balance can sometimes be tricky, and sometimes it'll take us, multiple drafts in order to really get a look that makes everybody happy. Will my video look good? This is the big question, and the answer is yeah, hopefully. Again, we'll take as much care as we need to make sure that your video looks good and that it plays well. We're not afraid to kind of speak up if we think something could be improved, but we'll also be sure to make it your own. We're very careful to make sure that obviously you're priority number one and that you're absolutely happy with your video. You know, if at all you're just like, oh yeah, the video's like fine, we'll definitely try to follow up and be like, okay, no, like we actually do want to make sure that you're very, very happy with what you're getting. You know, if it means a couple of more drafts, that's what it means, but we're happy to do it. We hope this has given you a bit of insight into the video editing process as well as what you can expect as a client. If you have any other questions, please let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. You know I'm gonna have to edit that out, right?
And this is on the question.
Yeah.
What are the challenges video editors face?
Yeah. Yeah.
Aaron walking through your shot.
Yeah.